All right, gents, where do we want to start first?
Well, there's a raised pedestrian crossing issue, but first, just to answer a question from last week.
Yes.
Patrick, you asked me about what is the fine for not stopping at a stop sign. I checked with the chief of police, and not stopping at a stop sign or yielding at a yield sign, it's the same fine. It's $128.50, plus it's a moving violation, so that would count points against your license. So if you make sure you stop at stop signs, but especially, as we were talking about last week, the intersection of Stauffer and Stanley Avenue, with that, when it's flashing, all vehicles stop until the pedestrians have gone through the intersection. And that would also be the same fine or fee.
128 large. And thank you, Chief Arnold, for getting us that information and points on top of that.
Yes.
Insult to injury.
Yes.
Okay, where do we want to go next?
With the raised pedestrian crossing, now this is an issue where Alan will definitely have a response to. A lot of people have asked me, and even we got an email about it. And if you have your email questions, you can send them to mayor@chambersburgpa.gov, and we'll answer them, in the email and also on the air. And this is one of those questions. The raised pedestrian crossing at the intersection of Norland Avenue and Wilson Avenue. So take it away, Alan.
Well, I guess where we're going to start is we'll go back to the email that you received from a gentleman back on the 3rd of February. So we're still trying to catch up here a bit. The intersection he's talking about is the traffic calming device. It's located at Wilson Avenue and Norland Avenue. And the gentleman goes on to say that this is a vicious speed bump disguised as a raised pedestrian crossing. He goes on to say that I've heard the rumor that was created on the behest of a borough council member who lived at that intersection and who desired to slow traffic on his corner.
So that's between Wilson College and Norland Pub on that strip right there. Okay.
Yes, it's the first block from the traffic
light.
Yep,
okay.
So I guess that's one of the reasons as I look back that we started doing this program in the morning is to try to put rumors to bed.
Okay.
And this is fraught with bad information.
Okay.
And that's why I think it's worth talking about a bit here this morning. He goes on to talking about the rumor that it was created at the behest of a council person. That's exactly wrong. It was not requested by a council person, and there is a method of getting a traffic calming device installed in your neighborhood. It's not an easy criteria to make. There's a lot of time spent on creating the criteria for that, and it was adopted back in March of 2010. But to make a long story short, there's various criteria that go into making to make that happen, and part of it is the speed that's involved in the street, the number of accidents are created there, and foremost, is the majority of the people that live in the neighborhood have to approve it. They have to say they're in favor of it. So for this gentleman to say that it was a rumor that was created, that's exactly right. It was nothing but a bad rumor.
Okay.
It was not created by a borough council person, nor has a borough council person ever lived on that corner to the best of my knowledge. It was requested by two families that live right on the corner, plus the neighborhood. So he goes on to say, in the last 10 years, I've only seen pedestrians crossing a handful of times. That crossing was put on the council agenda in May of 2011. It was an agenda item, and that's when it was authorized. So it's only been there since around May of 2011. A lot of people seem to be complaining about that, or not a lot, but some are complaining about it. And you know, if you lived in that neighborhood, you'd probably want the traffic to slow down too. It's between two major roadways here in the borough of Chambersburg. Noting that the speed limit on Norland, when you get out toward the shopping areas, out more on the east side of town, is 35 miles an hour. Actually, the speed limit between Edgar and Scotland Avenue is 25 miles an hour. You're in a residential area. That speed bump, that traffic calming device that we put in there, is actually installed there to slow people down. If people weren't going too fast through there, that would have never been erected there. He goes on to say, he says, the crossing is bad for my car and worse for my injured back. And to that, I go through that intersection probably on the average of once a day. If you treat it with respect, you aren't going to injure your car, you aren't going to injure your back, And if it's really that bad, I'd ask the gentleman to find another route to work. So he goes on to talk a little bit about how about changing this disingenuous crossing for an honest yet painless four-way stop.
That's a good question.
That is a good question. Four-way stops require a thorough traffic study. It's a certain criteria that has to be met, and that criteria is set by the state. Actually, if it meets the criteria for a four-way stop, it meets the criteria for a traffic light as well. So
I don't think we need
it
another
get
traffic
very
light
expensive.
there.
It could be another $300,000 project.
No, please.
So not warranted. I would just ask people to go through there, and many people go through there, and many people don't even slow down when they go across that.
Well, you do that once.
I would ask them just to slow down. You're in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, and any chance of getting as you head towards Wilson College, and I kind of agree that is a big darn lump of asphalt there. That's certainly a deterrent. It does slow me down, but then you get the dip as you're getting towards Wilson College. I mean, you either bottom the car out one way or you scratch the front of the car the other way if you're not going slow enough there too. That's cited for repair on 11, right?
That's listed on the repair of US 11.
Very good.
That's correct.
Very thorough, Alan.
That's what we wanted to be. Very thorough.
Okay, then. Where do we want to go next? It's I don't know which topic.
Well, there's last week's meeting, and then also you had some good questions. But as far as last week's meeting, the two main issues were finalizing whether we're going to do a study to make downtown one-way or two-way, and then also there was a vaping question for borough employees.
Okay.
So one-way traffic, we decided, or the borough council, I should say, because I didn't get a vote. There was a question: should downtown be made from one-way into two-way traffic? And the council would have to vote on whether to do a study or not. And the estimated cost, we don't know how much it would have cost to do the study, but from the borough manager's perspective, it could have cost about $100,000 to do a study from PennDOT to determine whether or not the downtown should be made into two-way or to one-way. And so the council looked at it, discussed it, and heard comments and decided, no, we're just going to keep downtown one-way as it is right now.
What was the vote on that, out of curiosity?
Was it 7?
7-3.
Yeah. 7-3.
7-3. But even to take the discussion beyond that item was discussed at the Parking, Traffic, and Streetlight Committee. They voted unanimously to table it, to not pursue it. It was also voted on and discussed at the Planning and Zoning meeting the week before we had our meeting. They decided to table it. So it came to council. Council voted 7-3 to table it.
Okay. And the vaping?
Vaping, yes. There's a question. Right now, the borough of Chambersburg has a no smoking policy for borough employees while they're working and also while they're in the borough buildings. And so the question is vaping or vaporizing. I'm not sure what all they're called. E-cigarettes also, because it's not tobacco, it's not regular tobacco, and it's not actually smoke. So can that be added to the policy? Well, the council they didn't take a vote because they technically could not, but the overall attitude of the council was that it should be added, but it has to go through the unions. There are 3 unions in the borough of Chambersburg, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, they're all 3 of the unions for the borough employees. They're going to do renegotiation of contracts this year.
All 3 unions are renegotiating contracts this year, and that'll obviously be a discussion item.
Yes. So that'll be one issue whenever they renegotiate the contracts. Should it be added to the no smoking policy or not? I mean, the borough the borough manager made a good point that it doesn't look professional to have someone at their desk vaping because it looks like smoking.
Yep.
So,
and honestly, beyond that, I think maybe what might have been a forerunner for this is the fact that Chambersburg Hospital and the Chambersburg School District apparently are doing the same thing. So we aren't really asking for anything any different than what the other big organizations, the hospital and school district, are asking for here in the borough.
We're visiting with the mayor and town council president here on News Talk 103.7 FM. You guys can stay for a couple of moments, I assume.
Yep.